My name is Brian Wish. I'm an entrepreneur, CEO, and pathfinder. If I've learned anything in life, it's that self-discovery is a critical part of living intentionally, building meaningful relationships, and achieving the future we see for ourselves. In July of 2021, I sold all my possessions, headed west, and began a quest to live a fuller and more meaningful life. The experience helped me truly understand the power of a single moment. And through my conversations with leaders from all walks of life, I've seen how that one phone call, heartbreak, diagnosis, or lost job can transform the entire course of our lives. In this podcast, I sit down with entrepreneurs, influencers, and experts across industries to talk through the events that changed everything. Together, we'll relive the make or break decisions, hard conversations, periods of despair and hope, chance encounters, and everything that followed. Dilan Gomih is the founder and chief energy officer of Dilagence, a company that leverages the power of well-being to fuel human performance. Dilan's combination of corporate experience, fitness expertise, and her Harvard MBA allowed her to create a unique methodology for performance coaching that has helped people worldwide. She specializes in helping busy professionals take control of their time and transform their productivity and performance by prioritizing their well-being through a workout that is custom tailored to fit into their lives. Dilan makes it her mission to connect with her clients in a way that is open, honest, and fun. While working in finance, Dilan channeled an injury of her own into learning everything she could about fitness, from the practice to the theories to the business of some of the biggest fitness brands in the space. Her curiosity morphed into time on the bike, onto the mat, and in the gym at Flywheel, berries, and coaching clients, both in person and virtually. Dilan continues to do her homework, bringing to bear the perfect program for her clients. Dilan's life changed when she realized her passion aligned with an area that many people in her professional community needed support with. Discover how she made the shift to a more fulfilling path today on The One Away Show. All right, Dilan, welcome to The One Away Show.
Thanks for having me, Brian. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to be here with you. So Dilan, what is the one away moment that you want to share with us today?
So I do genuinely tell people that working on Wall Street was what really changed my trajectory. It was what helped me to realize what I wanted to do with my life. But there are a few pivotal moments, but I always ask for one. But I do remember this time in my life where I was both working on the trading floor, and by this point I was also teaching something like 7 to 10 fitness classes for a reason. I genuinely loved getting to help people fit fitness into their day as I was fitting it into mine. But asking somebody I was working with why they did after what they did after 20 years. And I was hoping they would say something along the lines that they love it and this is their favorite thing to do. But their real answer was that they didn't know how to do anything else. And me sitting there knowing that I had not only this passion, but also capacity for thinking about how can we get people to actually live and work better. And I really wanted to build that and spend my days doing that. I couldn't hear somebody say that after 20 years, they kind of felt chained and stuck and not move and not think, well, maybe then I should spend however much time I've got on this earth building something I know I can build.
It's a way to open up a conversation here. So
saying reality is mortality or mortality is reality.
So for context of this, Dilan, how old were you at this time?
I think I had to have been 26 or 27.
All right, so you're 26 or 27. You were at this desk, and one day you decided to look up and ask someone the question why, right?
Yeah.
Why did you ask this person that question?
I know at that point I'd been zooming out and thinking about this newfound discovery for fitness and well-being that I literally built into my life. So again, I was working on a trading floor, and it's a little different. Some might venture to say unheard of, but a little different to also have a kind of a career of teaching 7 to 10 classes on top of a full-time job. But the reason why I was doing it is I genuinely say to people, think about whatever your favorite thing to do is, and will anything stop you from doing that? And the answer is no. For me, I really loved this element of the people that were taking my class at call it 5 in the morning or super late at night. They were also me. They were also people that like needed to figure out how to harness their well-being in some manner, shape, or form. And I loved the fact that not only was I somebody who understood them, but I was somebody that could be helpful. And not knowing what beyond teaching fitness classes I could do was starting to hit me. I was like, what does it mean to have a passion for fitness and wellness? What does it mean for that to be a career? And I'd already been asking a lot of questions. Like I was asking people within my firm, I have a passion for fitness and wellness. What can this mean? And I was getting answers like, hey, why don't you think about consumer banking? And I was like, that wasn't quite what I was thinking. Like I was like, there's something more here that I can do with my hands. So then I started to consider, well, what makes people continue this particular path to understand, am I missing something? So that was what it was born out of. I was asking a lot of questions already.
So you saw there was something more for you. You were questioning the path of Wall Street, cranking out at your desk or on the trading floor. And so you're not only asking yourself questions, but you were asking other people around you in similar, profession, kind of why. Before we maybe go into the switch or kind of when you ask that question, out of curiosity, why did you go to Wall Street in the first place? Like, what was the drive to do that?
So the impetus behind it is I remember being in college and having, a really awesome person who was like the grade above me who had just noted like, look, you've done internships in media, you've had an internship in tech. Have you thought about the finance route? And I was like, frankly, no. But, I was a poli sci African studies major at the time. I really, really love the interconnectedness of the world. Like nothing is ever in isolation. Like so many things are inextricably linked, whether it's, the financial world to the political world or vice versa. So the idea of like trying a finance internship totally made sense to me. And if somebody were to ask fast forward, like, well, you're a fairly creative person, you're a liberal arts major, like what drew you to something fairly quantitative and not like remotely necessarily close to like media or tech? Most important thing were like the humans that I spent my internship summer with. So I had folks that were willing to teach me, people that quite frankly I had a lot of fun with. And people always ask you that question of like, hey, who could you sit next to for 8 hours? When you're working on Wall Street, you're not sitting there for 8 hours. We're talking 10 to 12 hours. And of course, the internship was just like a taste, but like I really liked the people that I was being taught by and being mentored by. And that was what drove me, which is like, sure, it's tough, but I think what you find in most things in life, it's a lot easier to get through challenge or learn or grow when you're doing it with people that actually care and are willing to invest in you. And I felt that.
You're talking about, you had a conversation and they said, you've done these internships and all these different experiences. I mean, when you were at that time of life, Dylan, I mean, it seems like you've always been ambitious and high achieving and no matter what you've done. But I mean, to be asking questions at 26, 27 about what is this all for and where is it going? I mean, when you were even younger and kind of exploring different career paths, like maybe not so much a external like title or external like professional level, but like at a values level, like what was important for you to have in your career and like what were you seeking?
I mean, it's interesting when you zoom out further than that, though, in terms of like what made me think, like what careers I was interested in over time. So, first and foremost, I thought I was going to be a doctor. I was super interested in being a doctor. Why? My dad's a doctor. So, like, my dad showed me his field, and for kicks and giggles, I'm happy to share he's a urologist. I learned lots of things, especially when you're like able to do PowerPoint and kind of help your dad on the tech side with some of his PowerPoint slides. My mom went back to school to become a lawyer fairly late. I'd say like 47 or so. More importantly, I was 9 when she went back to law school. What did that mean? That meant that when she was studying or she was in the car listening to law school tapes, I was in the car with her. So when she was like taking me to a competition or to a figure skating competition, my mom was studying and I got to like watch her pursue something and something she really cared about and something she was really passionate about. So surprise, surprise, actually going into college, exposed to that, I thought I was going to be a lawyer, truly. But the cool thing that I found over time is I got really cool opportunities to broaden the aperture of what I could do. So first you heard me here understand like a pretty traditional career. Number one, medicine. Traditional career number two, law. Traditional career number three, banking. The fitness well-being stuff, nobody had taught me about that. I didn't even know it was a thing I could do. But I was so taken by it that despite the fact that there really wasn't a roadmap for it, I couldn't let it go. So I think I'm somebody who's always had curiosity. I've always been somebody who is willing to like learn more about things and more importantly, like, pursue things.
Mm.
But this was something that was just so wedded to my spirit and also kind of tied to like what I understood could be better for the world. Like
Mm.
I know what medicine does. I know like when I think about my dad, he's a healer. I know why my mom does what she does. She's a civil public defender for mental health cases. She is in this because she's trying to be of service. When I think about fitness and well-being, it goes beyond the gateway of just fitness or helping organizations to think about well-being is important. It is because everybody has the fundamental right to live well. Everybody has the right to be happy on this planet, and health and happiness are inextricably linked. And knowing that I'd figured out a way that I really cared about helping people to fit well-being into their lives, especially as somebody who also first and foremost had to live as a busy human, I was like, this is something I can do to be of service. Like this is a pretty solid use of Dylan that not only makes me happy. Did I just speak in the third person? I sure did. Like a pretty good use of me that I had a pretty good lens on that was beyond the generic broad stroke approaches. And I'm happy to kind of bring it full circle to like even why I was drawn to the concept of being a healer, which is I continue to think about the concept of cardiovascular disease being the number one cause of death. And besides genetics, the preventative things that you do are so powerful in terms of combating cardiovascular disease instead of treating the symptoms and having to wind up in the healthcare system. Knowing that I had a lens on being able to like meet people where they are, which is the workplace, and help organizations to think about better systems or at least providing better education to people about how they can pursue meaningful work alongside their health and more importantly use their health to improve their work. I couldn't let that go. But it's because I finally had exposure to it first and foremost in my own life.
I think it's beautiful. I love how you talk about knowing why your dad did what he did in the healing space, why your mom, why you knew your mom doing what she was doing. But then you said, and I wrote it down just because I thought it was nicely, eloquently worded. You said everyone has the fundamental right to live well.
Yeah.
And you talk about the link to health and happiness. Tell me more about that.
I often encounter people that think that we can exist in a zone where it's either like zero, you're totally burnt out, or you're super high performing, when really I think over time we kind of oscillate through different zones. Especially in some of the environments that I work with people in, a lot of people are in survival mode. They're in a space where they're kind of just trying to get by, and to the point of well-being, being a human that is living well, that means you're thriving. And when you're thriving, that means that you're able to approach not just your work, not just like your what you do at your desk or like your profession, but also the time that you spend with your loved ones, the times that you're able to spend with your community in a way that brings you happiness, and all these things become reinforcing. So that's what I mean. Like your health is actually meant to be like a gateway to living better, to being able to pursue every other aspect of your life in a way that brings you joy, in a way that allows you to thrive, that you're not just getting to the end of the day and being like, okay, I survived another one. That's not what we're on this planet to do. Your thriving days should ideally outweigh your surviving days. And I think your consciousness of your physical well-being, like literally the metabolic processes, are you moving? To your mental well-being, to your emotional well-being, how are you feeling? To your mindful well-being, what are you optimizing for? Are really important to being able to support your ability to thrive.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, I agree, right? You often do meet people in the two different extremes, and it's like, how do you create a sense of normalcy or balance within those extremes by, a core set of principles or way of living, which you have a ton of. But before we go there and how you do all the amazing things in the world that you do, take us back to that moment at your desk when you kind of
Mm.
were in the deep life. See how I'm bringing this around? Did you doubt me? So,
I don't doubt you.
okay, just wondering.
I
So
don't doubt you in this world, Brian. Your last name is Wish. Your
that's
name
right.
is full of hope. The
Hope.
last thing I'm going to do is doubt you, Brian.
Come on, Dylan. So take me to the moment when you saw a different life for yourself. Like you were asking questions, but like it just you were going to sleep at night and just you couldn't not think
Yeah.
about a different path. Like what was the moment of extreme clarity, or maybe there wasn't, where you're just like, I gotta switch or course correct here.
I think the date might have been July 5th. But that was actually kind of like when I realized I hadn't gotten the answers that I needed or wouldn't be able to find it within my current work. And I've never been the type of person that kind of has to like keep up with the Joneses or like do the same things everyone else was doing. So like a lot of people had already considered grad school. Like, there's always the joke that like Nigerians are doctors, lawyers, or engineers. And I'd obviously clearly already bucked that. So this concept of going back to school had no resonance for me. I had no true desire to go back to school until the aha for me was like, I need to understand what the business of fitness and well-being is. And I'm not somebody who is, I'll try it this way. When I go shopping, I'm pretty quick in the store. I'm pretty good about knowing what I want, and I can get in and get out in a few minutes. And I knew that was the first time I was ready to go back to school and understand if I want to know what the business of well-being is, now an MBA makes sense. Now it makes sense to go back to school. And I think I remember that date because I was pretty ambitious about it. I signed up to take a test in August so that way I could write my essays and submit my applications for business school in September.
You saw business school as a way out.
You know what? I wasn't even thinking about escaping. Like the language that you're using is almost making it sound like I was trying to escape Wall Street versus I knew what I wanted to like run towards and I just didn't know how.
I see.
It,
And
you know,
business, B school was a lever to get you closer to it. Maybe it's that better language.
which is what I genuinely tell people. Like I do know, and like zero judgment around it. I know folks that use business school as an opportunity to take a break. And for some people that's incredibly powerful. Knowing the cost of it, and for me, I put myself through school. So knowing how much school cost, there was absolutely no reason for me to do it unless it absolutely would make sense for me. And what I'll tell people is, like, wherever you are is point A, where you want to get to is point C. Business school should be a way for you to get to point C. If you know a way to get to point C without it, then you don't need to go. Like, there's no reason for it. For me, I saw how business school could help me to get to point C, to get to this point of, I know what I'm passionate about. I have an understanding of like what my hands do and what my brain works, but I don't know what the best possible uses are. Once again, I need to broaden my aperture of how I can combine my energy and expertise. And this is a place that I can do it.
That's quite intentional, I'd say, because I think you're right. I think a lot of people approach B school or law school in a way of not really knowing the direction it's going to take them, but as a way to just kind of pause. You, on the other hand, it sounds like you were incredibly intentional about the investment, of course, that goes into it, but then also what you're going to, hopefully kind of get out of it, or at least kind of the effort you were going to put into it to maximize the investment.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly what you said. Like, I think if you view it as an opportunity cost as opposed to an opportunity, then you can't go. And again, for me, like, I put myself through school. The investment was significant for me. It absolutely was something that I was like, I see how this makes sense, and I can see what the ROI could be. And it's one of the best decisions I could have made for myself. Not simply because of life now, but when I think about what I really needed to get out of it was like the understanding of like, what are all the things that I can do with this passion? That was the time.
Just because I'm curious, and I mean, given that you're an avid poster these days, so I appreciate you making just time to come on the show now that you're so popular, but
Oh dear
I
God.
don't hear you talking about B school a lot. So if you could
Yeah.
like what were the 3 to 5 things that when you look back and reflect on B school, you were like, those were transformative. Without those
Oh yeah.
moments or those things I learned or takeaways, like I would not be, where I am now, which we can get to.
Oh yeah. I mean, so right out the gate, I will continue to underscore like the power of connection and that it is never too late to keep building connection. I think fairly quickly we arrive at a state where like, okay, I have my community and I'm kind of set. Like I've got my set of friends, I have my people. And I will say really quickly, like even when I think about like the person I sat next to or had to sit next to first semester who like is absolutely like near and dear to my heart today, like you very quickly find more people that you feel like you've known your entire life. So like just like the expansion, not network, of community was so powerful for me to like just build these like
Hmm.
additional humans that have been there for me and vice versa. And I'm definitely the type of like person who like when I'm your friend, you got me. And it's was a really beautiful time to have those folks also like new folks come into my space and sphere. And by the way, wasn't even just like other students. Like I think that's also something that people kind of like miss when you go to school. Is you like might like go back to school mode, but you're kind of like also forgetting that you're an adult. But this also like there's people from like I am a proud alumnus of like Harvard Business School. There's people I met on faculty and on staff that are so near and dear to my heart that I'm like, I don't know how did I not know you before this? So I'd say that's by far the biggest one. The second one I talk about when I say like the uses of Dylan, I actually mean also like the ways that I was able to think and understand that, yeah, it is a viable thing to do. So I got to play with everything from like almost like the entrepreneurial angle where like I started a boot camp on campus and I was like, wait, I'm gonna start a boot camp on campus? Okay, I started a boot camp on campus and I did that. Like that was just like, oh, like we're jumping right in. Like I actually hadn't fully embraced or understood what I was doing on Wall Street when I was teaching full time. So like I continued to work full time while I was in business school. So when I zoom out to like the work that I do right now and why it resonates so well is I'm never making broad stroke recommendations. It's always meant to be tangible and strategic because I know what it's like to have dynamic day or to have like life inevitably happen and to like realize like it's not going to be one size fits all. Like it's such a luxury to only get to do one thing at a time. I've never gotten to do that. I've always been understanding like I have to work, I also have this other priority. So about my well-being is fundamental to me being able to successfully do them both. So this was also a time where like I was doing it for myself and realizing, oh, this wasn't just like a when I was working on Wall Street thing. This is a thing that I've actually both been experiencing, but then also spent some time learning because by this point I'd really worked hard to make sure I was getting the right certifications to be able to support just about any type of human. And then when I think about learning about different functions or like what the health and well-being space was, I got super lucky in that I had internships and exposure to people and was like really hungry about getting to know other folks that could teach me what I didn't get answers to in the time before. So I was able to go to people and say like, what does it mean to potentially pursue a career in health and well-being? And there were more answers than potentially just going back to banking.
I mean, I was expecting you to say, the people in the network, but it seems like you really valued the relationships that you built, the ways of thinking for sure, as I'm sure it exposed you to new lines of thought. No idea you started a boot camp on campus. What was a boot camp, just for context here?
It was a fitness boot camp.
A
So like
fi-
there's
Oh, it
fitness.
was fitness boot camp.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, and what was
And
the
I say
goal and
boot camp
purpose? What did you
loosely
do?
because I'm joyful and I like to make people have more fun. I'm not really like a yelling type, but
But
no,
oh
you got
god,
people to move.
okay. Describe your early MVP, your early boot camp that you built on campus. What did it look like?
No, essentially people came into class like that was take a whether it was weights or I am obsessed with the concept of body weight in particular, just at a minimum to let people know that your own body is kind of like Wolverine from X-Men. It will heal itself, it will strengthen itself. Like you don't need anything other than you in so many different ways besides the physical and the mental to like get stronger. And body weight movement can be one of the most powerful ways to like prove that.
Hmm.
And if you're doubting me, like I take the simple example of like a plank. What people will find is when you start a plank, you might start shaking much sooner than you physically need to come down. And when you know that, that's actually when you use the power of your mind. And you actually do like I'll often tell to people like I don't personal train as much, these days. But like when somebody is talking to me about their fitness routine and we talk about planking, I'll ask them, "What's the story you're telling yourself while you're holding the movement? What are you saying to yourself?" Because it actually matters so much and actually translates to anything other that they have to do or when they face difficulty, which is like, what's the story you're telling yourself when you're trying to get through the shaky moments? Because it matters. And guess what? You'll get through them probably better and longer and higher longevity when the story you're telling yourself is positive.
All right.
Why are you smiling?
I'm noticing, I'm shaking, you're influencing the shake, the Zoom shake.
I'll
Uh,
shake with you. I can shake
there
with
you
you.
go. Thank you.
Hey.
I need a counterpart. One thing I'm thinking about, Dylan, is just from like knowing you, from education and self-belief and kind of taking ownership of things in your life. Like it seems like you value like self-investment, investment
Mm.
and kind of furthering yourself. Where does that come from?
I will give a lot of credit to my parents. I'd be remiss if I think about it, if, like to think it comes anywhere from other than from them. So I'm first generation Nigerian American. My parents moved here, and they will continually say that it was because they knew it was the best place for them to give me and my older siblings a better life, and for them to be able to do that. When I think about continuing an ongoing investment in self, I cannot help but think about my mom,
Hmm.
who I am one of four. And after just about every kid, she went back and got an additional degree. So after my oldest brother, she went back and she got a master's. After my sister, she went back and she got her MBA. After me, she went back to law school. And the reason why I said just about every other, she did this in the context of I have a second brother who is autistic. And she did this all while raising an autistic child at a time where there's very few resources for how to do that as an immigrant in this country. So I had a front row seat to somebody who always operated with the understanding that it's never too late, never give up. And when I say like she didn't just put these things aside, she's like straight up operationalized it. Like my mom is almost 70 and she's still working. So I be remiss to like watch that happen and ever believe it's too late or that I can't do something or that it's too late to start something because I've watched it.
Hmm. Wow. It's beyond inspiring.
I really like her. She's one of my favorite humans.
So if I, so if
Huge
I,
fan.
so if I called her and I said, Miss Gomi, describe your youngest child, Dylan, what do you think she'd say?
Should we call her? I guess we can't on Zoom. Part of me
I
wants to.
mean, we could, but
I kind of want to.
we could do it after. You could ask her that you were asked this question today on the phone on the Zoom recording.
Well, she would probably tell a joke. We live life with like a healthy dose of humor. So she'd be like, "Is she listening right now?" And in this case, the answer would be yes. But she would also probably say what I just said. She was like, "Yeah, I like her." That's probably what she would say. In fact, I realized I think I probably took that line from her.
Hmm.
You're just making all these things pop out, Brian. It's almost like you do this on a regular basis.
It's almost like I'm good at this. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
almost like you're good at this.
I'm just here having a conversation. So, all right. So, you're a believer in self-investment because of your mother. You've done this throughout, clearly in the young life of yours that you've continued to pour back into yourself. Uh, you went to B school and you've pursued this track of helping people. You pursue this path of giving everyone a fundamental right to live well. I feel like that should be your new tagline. Now you have, Dilan Gomih Enterprises. So tell us about everything you're working on right now and how you're serving the world in your own unique way.
Sure. So I run a company called Dilagence, which is spelled Dilagence. So it is absolutely a play on my name. But what I also highlight for people is that the word diligence means steady, energetic, and persistent effort, which is everything that you need to be a leader in the workforce, but it's also everything that you need to bring a healthy habit into your life. And when I consider people in the workforce, almost all of these individuals can think about a physical athlete or an athlete that they will applaud their efforts or what they've achieved physically, but they also talk about their mind and how strong their minds have been. People in the workforce are at the top of their mental game, but they leave the physical piece off the table. So the work that Diligence does is connect the dots between the two, that movement matters for your mind, that well-being actually helps you to achieve higher performance. And whether it's workshops or building organizational strategy and programming, I partner with organizations to design tactical, strategic, and helpful approaches to helping their employees and executives to work and live better.
You're diligent with the people you work with, aren't you?
I'm pretty diligent.
So when you're working with an organization, right? What's that look like, right? I mean, you hear a lot of people, other coaches and consultants, and they want to do their, program on XYZ and bring that to life, usually on maybe org design or some type of framework they've developed. But for you, like you're really working at a well-being level. So like, what does that mean if I'm, let's just say, Starbucks, and I bring you in out to Seattle to my headquarters, and you're helping, hundreds of their people, like what's the work that you're doing at these large organizations?
Yeah, and I'd say first and foremost, like slot me into an offsite agenda because well-being is meant to be like part of the
Mhm.
day, part of the programming because everything is inextricably linked. So, in the same way that I tell people that it should fit into your days and your life, it should actually fit into the existing programming that you're doing to strengthen your overall organization. And I realize my messaging resonates because a lot of the approaches that I offer and the evaluations I offer are extremely simple. It can be everything from there's usually business justifications to move during the day. So, for example, if you're somebody who's working in an office, at some point you're going to have a meeting, an in person meeting, or a reason to catch up with somebody internally. What's the difference between let's meet and let's go get coffee? Let's go get coffee means you're getting up and you're walking and you have a business justification for moving. Let's not forget the fact that there's actually neuroscience that highlights that when you move, you're actually doing the best possible thing for your brain and your cognitive abilities to be able to think better. So that's literally how simple and tangible I will make these approaches, and whether it's physical well-being, emotional well-being, mental well-being, which is literally your ability to focus, and mindful well-being, and give really like thoughtful and simple approaches to help people build it into their days. That's part one, like literally a workshop or a keynote or a discussion on how to think about building movement or well-being into the day. The second part is I'm actually really happy most organizations have corporate wellness offerings. What I often find is a very small part of the workforce is actually using it. To me, that translates to a loss in revenue and inefficiency. Most of my background is in strategy and business development. So loss of revenue and inefficiency isn't something that I'd want for any organization, especially one that I'm partnered with. So whether it's helping an organization evaluate what people are actually using and what they'd actually value, to actually helping them to build effective programming, that's where I'll come in as a partner and say, like, it's great that you already have some kind of offering. Let's think about how to make sure that it has high ROI and is something that your employees value.
It's so interesting that you talk about if you're tired or you're not moving and how that's going to be linked to loss of revenue or, not showing up in your healthiest ways. And it's almost counterintuitive where you have the, companies who want to work employees, I think, long hours and, get the things done. But if you actually create a, culture where people can care about their team, make them more healthy and like let them know like that comes first, like they'll probably show up in a way that's going to be better for the customers and better, as a thinker and all the things. Do you talk about that with clients?
Yeah, and the way that I think about it isn't even saying like, oh, you should let your employees go to the gym for like 2 hours a day. It's not necessarily that. It's actually kind of give them like the education and awareness of the really simple things that they can build into their day. Like even the things as simple as I know people that have a standing desk. It's great that they have a standing desk, but do they also know that the goal is not to stand all day? Because guess what? Standing all day can be just as bad. And there's all the research that highlights that people that have to be on their feet all day have low back pain as an occupational hazard. So instead, it's give your employees the strategy of like, what's the sit to stand ratio? So that way they're actually moving because standing is a static activity. Movement throughout the day is helping you to get your brain right and helping you to go into your next task refresh. I oftentimes hear people say like just doing a quick lap gave them a reset. It's not a fluke. Like there's actually something happening. There's a connection between your body and your mind. We oftentimes hear people talk about how exercise can alleviate anxiety and depression. It's not a fluke. These things are so connected. And I'm not proposing new equipment. I'm not proposing software. I'm actually just raising really simple strategies that people can kind of apply to their workforce and help people to be aware of that will make a difference in their overall productivity. But again, I'm also after quality of life and longevity.
Yeah, you make it quite simple, Dylan, of how
Life
you,
is hard enough. I'm
right,
not going to
life
make
is
it more
hard enough.
complex.
Like you're born and we're all have to go through pain, we don't get out, scotch free.
Well, when I do think about things around fitness, there is that consideration of when you are lifting a weight, you're tearing muscle fibers. That doesn't sound very, very nice. But there's also the understanding of when you're sore or when you're like lifting or tearing these muscle fibers, when you give it a little time to heal, guess what happens? You get a little stronger. So I don't necessarily like making people think too much about the pain, but there's this understanding of
Oh, so
you have to,
you think pain is growth.
well, you're saying it in a different way than I would, but you know what? It's part of the process. Like growth happens through a little bit of discomfort. I think who
Got it.
said that? The IBM leader.
I'm starting to get your
Growth and
approach.
comfort don't necessarily always go hand in hand.
So, all right,
But
Dylan, we're rolling over all the rocks here. Something else I'm curious about with you is, you've made this switch back to your kind of core moment. You kind of realized life was more. You pursued building this brand and business called Dilagence. You built a pretty, I would say, very interesting business in a short amount of time. But you're a strategic thinker, and you're clearly thinking about the next 3, 5, 10 years. Uh, Walk us through that. Like, what does the life of Dylan look like at, you know, 3 years out, 5 years out? Like, I want to see what you see for yourself.
I'm always conscious of never like generating a 10-year plan because you make plans that far out in the universe last. But I'll tell you what I care about. I care about scaling this education beyond me. And to that element, I care about making what I do so much more accessible. So we started this conversation with the acknowledgement that everyone has the fundamental right to be well. And I'm incredibly conscious that not all populations have the access to education or content to understand how to do that. So part of the grant vision is definitely to help not only create, but also curate useful and powerful content that allows everyone to be able to fundamentally be well. I also hope to continue partnering with other people to do this work. When I think about longevity and vitality and the fact that thankfully we are living longer, I also want people to be healthier in that process. I want to continue to partner with other people that are doing this work, particularly when it comes to movement, to think about how to broaden that and contribute how we're helping humans to be healthy for as long as they possibly can.
Hmm. Yeah. When you talk about like expanding the work beyond you, like you have
Yeah.
your fundamental belief of like what you want for the world, and you want this work to live beyond or be expanded by other people, right?
Yeah.
Based on like, how do you see that happening?
Yeah. I mean, a simple way I'll say it is I always think about how there is Tim Ferriss and there's a 4 hour work week. Like the concept is far beyond the human, although I love his media platform and all the things that he's developed. But I also think that I have my particular expertise. I like the idea of having other experts curating true and credible information, and it doesn't just need to be my voice. I don't think I need to be the only person talking about this. This should be something that survives me and like translates to workforces, all workforces. This should change the standard of how we approach work. This should have implications ideally for how we approach our healthcare system and making it so people don't necessarily have to be treating the symptoms. Can we do a lot more work around prevention? But this is what I mean, where it's like, I love that I get to be an advocate for health and well-being and what it can do for humankind. But this is so beyond me, and I don't need to be the only face or the only voice. I hope to join forces with other people and partner with other people to make this messaging much larger, much more accessible to other people.
I like how I think some people get so possessive maybe over their kind of work and industry and kind of, like you said, like think they're the only person in it. But you're basically, I mean, not what you said, but you're basically saying, no, like I think I want to see this out there. I want more people to be in front of this. And I'm like, I want to play a role in the conversation. And I want to partner with other people who also kind of have a role in the conversation and amplify this message further.
There's somebody I had a conversation with earlier today that helped me think of myself in this way, where like most of my career, I've definitely been a builder. Like I've been somebody who's been really good at thinking about kind of what's the vision that needs to happen, and here's the systems or the processes that need to get built to make it happen. But what he noted was that the person who's the builder is actually also able to flex into being the visionary. So the reason why I'm doing this work is because I do have a unique vision and perspective and an effective approach to make this vision happen. So flexing into the visionary is something that I have been honored to do and have had the privilege of doing, and I'm happy to do this for sure. But I also am somebody who likes to empower, and I do like to keep building, and like the fastest way to get to scalable impact is not to be saying this is just me and I'm the only one. This is something that is bigger of a part of a bigger platform. And as long as there's authenticity and heart and integrity around it, I'm such a human that believes in partnership and collaborating to actually make something happen. So I have this vision, very willing to have other hands and other folks help me build it, and I'll be building with them in the trenches.
I love that. So I want to take what you just said and I want to create a imaginary situation for you. And I want you to fill in the dots. So
Okay.
imagine the Chief Wellbeing Association brings together all the chief wellbeing officers and all the most influential people in wellness and longevity, and puts them in a stadium where it can hold 30,000 people. I know that's smaller on the stadium level, but just, it can contain and just fill the seats. And one of the panels on the main stage where you're talking in front of everyone is you. And there's 3 seats next to you of people in your space. And you're talking about the industry at large, what that means for organizations, and what that just means for general well-being as a population level. Who's on the panel with you and why?
Ooh. Should I give particular names?
Yeah. I want
Or
to understand these people you want to share the message with, that you want to empower and support, who you also want to empower and support you.
totally. I mean, so right out the gate, like I said really early on, like health and happiness are inextricably linked. So I cannot help but think about people like Arthur Brooks and Laurie Santos, who do all this incredible work around happiness. I think about the incredible leaders at Modern Elder Academy who have been so thoughtful and about the holistic approach to like navigating life transitions. So Christine Sperber, Chip Conley, and Jeff. I feel like you should be on the panel. How can I just not have you there? Like you should just be there.
Look, I'm going to be there.
Okay, so you'll be
I'm
there.
going to be there translating for the audience here, the greatness of the words that you're saying. I want this to be a panel of your people.
Delightful. So I definitely think about these like these people that partner so much of kind of like the practical toolkit to like living better, especially like over time. Yeah, I'll start with those on the panel.
Okay. It's pretty incredible
But
people,
I
sounds
think
like.
they're pretty, absolutely fantastic people.
Except you're missing one really important person.
My mom.
Yeah, actually, I was going to say your mom.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
so
my
when
mom's
she,
there too.
so when she
And my
listens to,
dad.
oh yeah, okay.
By the way, my dad is there as like my own personal case study because one of the things that I'm just like so tickled by how the universe works sometimes is when I think about my own family and that my dad, who is in his late 70s and still a urologist, is the last surviving brother of a pack of 14 brothers. And the biggest difference between him and his brothers is he's continued to be physically active over the last 40 years.
Wow.
I absolutely credit his physical activity to not only his vitality, because if you see my dad, he doesn't look like a 76-year-old man. He doesn't move like a 76-year-old
Yeah,
man.
he looks like he's 44. I know. I saw the picture.
He's that is and by the like not only that, and it's not even about him being a urologist. When you meet this man, he is so full of life and joy. And that's like my walking case study for what physical activity and well-being as a performance strategy can mean. It means being in your late 70s, being able to do the vocation that you really care about, but also being able to enjoy time with loved ones, and your perspective on life is one where you're always looking up. His face is like radiant when you meet this man. Like that is my case study. So both my parents can be there.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful answer. All right, one more question before we bring this home. What's a milestone that you're gonna look back on this year when you ring the bell or whatever it is, end of the year, and you look back on this year and you're like, damn, I'm really proud I accomplished that.
So to the point of scaling the work that I do and making it accessible, at least the framework for a book, I get really excited about that. So that way anyone can read this beyond an organization. Again, while I do think that the voices will be bigger than mine over time, but speaking on broader stages, I think will definitely be one where I can really amplify the messaging and get the messaging to a lot more leaders who have an ability to change their workforces or impact their workforces is one that I'd be really proud of.
Well, I've no doubt that you'll do it. You clearly know how to stay healthy to make it happen. So knock on wood.
Are you standing right now?
I'm standing. Yeah, I'm adjusting my sit to
Amazing.
stand. Adjusting my sit to
Amazing.
stand.
No, because I think you were sitting and you
I
were
was,
standing.
you're my brain. You've already influenced me.
I have so much joy right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It truly means a lot. Dylan, where can people find you, reach out to you, say hello?
Yeah, so you can find me on my website, dilagence.com, dilagence.com. I'm also fairly active on LinkedIn at Dilan Gomih. And those are the two best places to start. I also just started a newsletter called the C-Suite Workout. So in addition to finding me on LinkedIn, I can slide right into your inbox too with some of these helpful tips and tricks.
I feel pretty left out of your newsletter title because I'm not in the C-suite of a corporation, I'm not in like...
It's for everyone to be able to like level up. Everyone's the CEO of their life. So I guarantee you everything is applicable to any human.
Helping me feel a little better about myself. Well, Dylan,
you should feel great about yourself.
Yeah, no, I'm kidding. It was about being included, feeling included in your newsletter. Dylan, thank you for the lovely conversation. I'm sure this will be spread widely and proudly and benefit many people.
Thank you for the opportunity to join you today, Brian.
Thank you.
You're my favorite.
Favorite.
You are. You're so great.
Thank you for joining me on the One Away Show. If you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, please leave a review and follow us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Have a one away moment you'd like to share? Follow me on Twitter or Instagram at BrianWish_, or reach out to me on LinkedIn and tell me about the moment that altered your life. The One Away Show is produced by Arcbound, a company dedicated to helping entrepreneurs, experts, and visionaries launch authentic personal brands.
From message development to podcast production, social media content generation, and book writing, we work with you to create your arc. Head to arcbound.com to learn more. Thank you for listening, and please join me next time on The One Away Show.